Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are diving straight into a totally fascinating and honestly incredibly common human paradox. Why is it that some people constantly talk about these massive world-changing dreams, but then they never actually take any action? Let's break down the hidden behavioral psychology behind this, and more importantly, let's talk about how to actually fix it. I want you to stop and think for a second. Do you know someone who constantly talks about massive goals? You know the type. They're always starting a new business, moving across the world, completely overhauling their life, yet years go by and they are sitting exactly where they started. Or maybe, and hey, if we're being completely honest with ourselves here, maybe you've actually recognized this frustrating cycle of chronic daydreaming in yourself. So what is really going on here? Well, the core diagnosis from behavioral psychology is pretty surprising. This lack of progress, it usually doesn't stem from a lack of desire. People genuinely want these things. The real issue is that the mind itself secretly becomes your biggest obstacle, creating this immense, invisible internal friction. But here is the good news. Because this is a psychological roadblock, it can be entirely dismantled.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the dreamer's hidden trap.
You see, a lot of us dream in these huge, broad strokes. We say things like, I want success, or I want financial freedom. It sounds great, right? But here is the psychological catch. The human brain simply cannot act on vague concepts. Unclear goals create zero immediate behavioral commands. So your mind feels incredibly inspired by this grand vision, but your physical body has absolutely no idea what to actually do next. It's stuck.
So how do we fix this massive disconnect? Well, you've literally got to bridge the gap between your mind and your body. Step 1 is simply identifying that abstract dream. But step 2, that is where the magic happens. You absolutely must turn it into one visible, measurable next step. You've got to translate that sweeping vision into an immediate physical instruction so your body knows exactly what to do right this very second.
Moving right along to Section 2, abstract goals and unreliable emotions. Now, this is a trap heavily fueled by modern hustle culture. It's the myth of motivation-dependent action. We somehow convinced ourselves that we can only work when we feel super inspired or electrically charged. But let's be real, human emotions change daily, sometimes hourly. If you depend on a feeling to begin your work, what happens when that motivation inevitably vanishes? The action vanishes right along with it. You've basically outsourced your progress to your mood, and mood is fundamentally unreliable. To fix this, you have to completely break that toxic reliance on fleeting motivation. You need to train yourself to start tasks in a completely neutral mood. Don't sit around waiting for a spark. Learn to initiate action when you feel absolutely nothing at all about the task. Doing this permanently separates your physical output from your emotional state. It is a total game changer.
Okay, Section 3, the discomfort of real growth.
People love imagining the finish line, don't they? But they rarely picture the messy, totally unglamorous reality of actually getting there. Real progress isn't some quick movie montage. It involves confusion, crushing boredom, rejection, endless repetition, and painfully slow results. When chronic dreamers start putting in effort and hit that inevitable wall of frustration, they assume something is terribly wrong. They quit because they expected inspiration, and instead, they just got irritation. The fix for this mental block is actively resetting your expectations. You must go into this expecting the process to occasionally feel awful. Seriously, if you start out knowing that boredom and frustration are simply part of the weather, your mind won't hit the panic button the second it starts to rain. You have to normalize the discomfort. It's not a sign of failure, it's just the process.
Let's look at Section 4, escaping the mental world.
This is where the brain plays its absolute most deceptive trick on us. We research, we plan, we talk endlessly about our goals with friends, we organize our desks for the 5th time, and it feels incredibly productive. But the harsh reality? It all happens internally. Nothing physical has actually changed in the real world. The longer a goal stays locked in this endless planning phase, the more disconnected it becomes from concrete behavior. Dreams don't need more internal imagination. They desperately require external movement. To forcefully break out of that internal loop, you need a daily anchor. And the rule is actually really simple. Execute at least one physical, real-world action toward your goal every single day. The size of the action doesn't matter at all. It just has to be a physical movement in the real world.
This acts as proof to your brain that the dream is real and not just some comforting fantasy you retreat to.
That brings us to Section 5, the illusion of unlimited time.
There is a silent killer of dreams out there, and it boils down to just 3 words: tomorrow feels available. When we secretly assume we can just start later, the brain completely removes any sense of urgency. Tomorrow feels available. Next month feels available. Next year? Sure, why not? Action gets postponed indefinitely. And crucially, this happens without any panic whatsoever, because your mind is treating time like it's an infinite resource. So you have to artificially manufacture the urgency that you're missing. First, pinpoint the exact actions you've been comfortably putting off. Then, you need to create strict, personal deadlines with actual stakes attached. You have to trick your brain out of the comfort of infinite time by making delays feel incredibly expensive. Put some money on the line, make a loud public commitment, whatever it takes, make it cost you to wait.
Finally, Section 6, winning the internal battle.
Most people ask, how do I get success? They focus entirely on the outcome. But psychology suggests we need to completely redefine what actually builds success. It really comes down to one single word: tolerance. And by that, I mean the ability to keep going when the results are completely invisible. Dreams aren't built on raw desire. Literally, everyone has desire. They are built on the capacity to endure the invisible phase of work. If you really want to break this cycle, you have to deliberately train this psychological muscle. Practice staying with boring, unglamorous tasks way longer than feels natural. When you feel that sudden, overwhelming urge to quit just because the results aren't immediately showing up, push just 5 minutes past it. By doing that, you are literally building the mental endurance required to turn a fantasy into a reality.
So, based on everything we've uncovered today, I want to leave you with this. Ask yourself, honestly, what level of repetition, boredom, and uncertainty can you consistently tolerate? Remember, your mind is the real battleground here. Expanding your tolerance for the uncomfortable reality of the process is the exact psychological shift required to finally stop dreaming and start doing. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep pushing those boundaries.